In 1991, Universal Studios invited guests to do something no theme park had ever truly attempted before. Not just watch a movie, not just ride one, but chase a villain through time itself. Inside a futuristic research facility, visitors became test pilots for a revolutionary invention, an 8-passenger time machine. But when Biff Tannen stole the DeLorean, the experiment turned into a race across the past, the present, and the future. Today, the ride is gone, the building still stands, and for many fans, the question remains: how did one attraction help define an entire era of Universal Studios? Alright, let's backtrack to the beginning. When Universal Studios Florida opened in 1990, expectations were enormous. The park promised guests they could ride the movies, but early visitors quickly discovered a problem. Many attractions were delayed, technical issues plagued rides, and guests compared the experience unfavorably to nearby Disney World. Universal needed something massive, something recognizable, something that felt like a blockbuster, and few films were bigger at the time than Back to the Future. Produced by Steven Spielberg and released in 1985, the film trilogy had become a cultural phenomenon. Time travel, comedy, action, and one unforgettable car made it the perfect property for a next-generation attraction. Universal didn't just want a ride, they wanted guests to step into the movie. What guests never realized was how carefully engineered the experience truly was. The attraction secretly contained 3 identical pre-show theaters stacked across 3 different floors. Each group believed they were the only visitors inside the facility. The timing was so precise that guests never saw another audience moving through the attraction. It created something rare in theme park design: total immersion. By the time Doc discovered Biff had stolen the DeLorean, visitors weren't waiting in line anymore. They were participants in a crisis. Doc needed volunteers immediately, and suddenly, doors opened. Guests stepped into massive, futuristic vehicles ready to chase Biff through time itself. Back to the Future the ride wasn't just themed differently, it was technologically groundbreaking. The attraction used a motion simulator system featuring 12 ride vehicles positioned beneath 2 enormous 70-foot IMAX dome screens. Each vehicle sat on 3 hydraulic pistons, allowing it to rise, drop, tilt, and shake in perfect synchronization with the film. The cars were arranged across 3 staggered tiers so riders couldn't see other vehicles, reinforcing the illusion that each group was alone in its own time machine. And unlike earlier simulator rides, Universal pushed immersion further than ever before. The ride film alone reportedly cost $40 million and required 2 full years of production. Even more impressive, there was no computer-generated imagery. Every explosion, environment, and time travel sequence was created using traditional optical effects, miniature models, and stop-motion animation, making it one of the first Omnimax presentations to incorporate stop-motion at this scale. It wasn't just a ride film. It was essentially a brand new Back to the Future sequel created exclusively for theme park guests. Once seated inside Doc Brown's experimental time vehicles, guests received their final instructions: catch Biff, retrieve the DeLorean, and most importantly, don't disrupt the space-time continuum. The massive doors closed and vehicles lifted into position beneath a towering dome screen, and suddenly the time circuits activated. The experience lasted just 4 minutes and 11 seconds, but packed more action than many full-length attractions of the era. Guests accelerated to 88 miles per hour, launching out of the Institute of Future Technology and immediately entering a chaotic time travel pursuit. Biff taunted riders from the stolen DeLorean, pulling them into different eras and environments, each designed to push simulator technology to its limits. The chase took guests through prehistoric landscapes filled with dinosaurs, across erupting volcanic terrain, into icy glacial environments, and eventually into deep space itself. The climax came when riders followed Biff into the distant future, where the DeLorean collided with a massive time vortex, freezing Biff in a comedic ending only fitting for the Back to the Future universe. Mission accomplished, timeline restored, and guests returned safely to the Institute, now officially certified time travelers. The success of Back to the Future, the ride, didn't stay confined to Florida. Universal quickly realized they had created something exportable. In 1993, the attraction opened at Universal Studios Hollywood, allowing West Coast guests to visit the Institute of Future Technology. Nearly a decade later, in 2001, the ride debuted at Universal Studios Japan, bringing Doc Brown's experiment to Osaka. Across 3 different locations, the experience remained largely identical, preserving the illusion that guests everywhere were participating in the same scientific breakthrough. Few attractions achieved this level of global consistency. Back to the Future wasn't just a ride anymore, it was becoming a defining Universal Studios attraction. But as the 2000s approached, time began catching up with the future. For years, Back to the Future the ride stood as one of Universal's signature experiences. But theme parks evolve and technology advances, and eventually even the future begins to feel like the past. By the early 2000s, motion simulator attractions were no longer new. Guests had experienced more advanced rides with sharper projection systems, smoother motion bases, and increasingly immersive storytelling. The once groundbreaking visuals of Back to the Future began showing their age. Maintenance costs increased, film projectors required constant upkeep, and Universal faced a difficult decision. Should they preserve nostalgia or move forward with a newer generation of attractions? In 2007, Universal made its choice. Both the Orlando and Hollywood versions of the Back to the Future ride officially closed their doors. Their replacement, an attraction based on another television and film phenomenon, the Simpsons ride. The new ride reused much of the existing simulator infrastructure, but introduced updated projection technology and a more contemporary intellectual property. For Universal, it represented modernization. For many fans, it felt like losing a piece of childhood. Online forums filled with farewell messages, guests traveled specifically to ride it one last time. Some visitors even wore lab coats or Back to the Future costumes as tribute to the Institute of Future Technology. The future had arrived, but not everyone was ready to say goodbye. Interestingly, one version of the attraction survived longer than the others. At Universal Studios Japan, Back to the Future the ride continued operating for nearly another decade. The attraction remained wildly popular with Japanese audiences, where the Back to the Future franchise maintained strong cultural appeal. It finally closed in May 2016, eventually replaced by Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. With that closure, the last operating time machine disappeared from Universal Parks worldwide. An attraction that once spanned 3 different locations was now history. Today, guests walk past the same building without realizing what once happened inside. They board new attractions, experience new stories, and create new memories. But for those who rode Back to the Future the ride, the Institute of Future Technology still exists somewhere in memory. A place where visitors became time travelers, where movies became reality, and where Universal Studios finally discovered what it wanted to be. Because sometimes, the most important destinations aren't found in the future, they're found when we look back. If you enjoyed revisiting this piece of theme park history, consider subscribing to Backtrack Parks, where we explore the rides, attractions, and stories that time left behind. Because there are still so many places, so many parks, and so many memories waiting for us to backtrack.